Hey everybody, I'm Jack Lombardo and I'd like to welcome you to the premiere episode of Jack's Interesting Facts. Now, those of you that are friends of mine or follow me on Facebook realize that I'm a bit of a vault of useless information. And as I've been putting interesting facts up on Facebook, some friends suggested that I start a little YouTube show about that. Thought about it for maybe, 3 seconds, and here we are with the premiere episode of Jack's Interesting Facts. And as I was deciding on a topic for this first episode, I realized that most of my friends are either from or very interested in the 1980s. So jump in your DeLorean, hit the gas up to 88 miles per hour, because we're going to look at some interesting facts about 1980s pop culture. And our first fact actually comes from the Back to the Future movie about that DeLorean, because it could not go 88 miles per hour. The DeLorean, in fact, had a top speed of 80 miles per hour. They had to change the speedometer for that movie to make it look like it was going up to 88. It should be also noted that the only reason they chose that car was to get the joke in about how it looked like an airplane without any wings. You could also note that the Ford company contacted Robert Zemeckis asking him to make the car a Ford Mustang, to which Robert Zemeckis replied, Doc Brown don't drive no Ford Mustang. Can't swear, so I kind of had to improvise there. And sticking with time travel movies from the 1980s, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You should know that Bill and Ted were originally a stage act, and they were also a trio. Bill, Ted, and Bob, which makes us wonder, what about Bob? Yeah. Somehow I always just picture Bob as like the curly of the group going, what's up, Ted? Anyway, but glad he wasn't in there because the movie was perfect the way it was. And sticking with movies, you might be interested to know that Sylvester Stallone was an early choice to play Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop. But he wanted to make the movie darker and grittier and to change the name of the character to Axel Cobretti. When they parted ways, Stallone took the idea to another studio and made the movie Cobra. And if you watch Beverly Hills Cop 2, there is a scene where Eddie Murphy, now playing Axel Foley, stops and looks at the Cobra movie poster. Kind of a nod to what had gone on there. And speaking of Eddie Murphy, he was originally supposed to be a Ghostbuster. So the original idea for the movie was for Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy to be set in the future fighting ghosts. But John Belushi died, Eddie Murphy chose to do Beverly Hills Cop, and we got stuck with that terrible movie, Ghostbusters. Ew. Yeah, right. But honestly, I would have loved to see Eddie Murphy and John Belushi work together if we had ever had the chance. Rest in peace, John. And continuing on with movies, we could also let you know that in early drafts of Empire Strikes Back, Yoda was named Buffy. But he was not a vampire slayer. Although, it'd be great to see Yoda fight Dracula, and I think Disney should make that happen. Listen up, Disney. But skipping over from movies to television, you might be interested to know that on Cheers, George Wendt, who played Norm, was only supposed to be in the very first episode. He didn't even have a line. He was just supposed to be sitting at a table as Diane served him as her first person to ever serve in Cheers. And eventually he got a line, and it was, "I'll take a beer." And then they moved him up to the bar to sit on a bar stool. And then he was given a name, Norm. And before you knew it, he was in all 275 episodes of Cheers. And continuing on with Cheers, it's also interesting to note that when it debuted, its first episode was number 77 in the ratings out of 100 shows, way near the bottom. Conversely, when it did its last episode, 11 years later, it was a dominant number one. And speaking of final episodes that were dominant, it should be noted that the final episode of MASH caused New York City to have an additional 6.2 million gallons of water flow through its sewer system at the end of the episode. Why? Because over 1 million people in New York City had stopped to watch the show and had basically, held it and not gone to the bathroom until the end of the episode. Interesting thing. James Avery, who played Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, was also the voice of Shredder on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Interesting fact that also makes me much more scared for Will when he gets yelled at by Uncle Phil. Yeah, and looking at commercials a little bit, we all remember the iconic Noid from Domino's. Well, the reason that ad stopped was because a man named Kenneth Noyd thought they were targeting him, calling him the Noyd, and he took a group of people, of employees from Domino's, hostage. And we can all thank him for taking away one of the most iconic spokespeople or ads characters of all time. Thanks a lot, Kenneth. And finishing out television, it's interesting to note that Cyndi Lauper sang the theme song to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I could hear that one time after time, and it's still hard to believe. Speaking on music, and going with another iconic female artist from the 1980s, Madonna had her first tour opening act. Her first tour opening act was the Beastie Boys, and they were often booed off the stage for swearing at the audience because, as we all know, in the 1980s, Madonna had very clean, family-friendly shows. Yeah. Sticking with the Beastie Boys, they wrote their hit song Fight for Your Right to Party as a parody of rock anthems. They personally hate the song and have refused to play it on stage since 1987. It's also interesting to note that another big hit that people either love or hate about the 1980s, Ice Ice Baby, was actually an accident. Ice Ice Baby was recorded as a side B track on a record, but after a DJ in Atlanta accidentally played the wrong side of the record, it went on to be a huge blockbuster hit, and depending on your view of the song, we're either thrilled or very annoyed that that happened with that DJ. And in 1981, a couple sued AC/DC for $250,000 because their phone number was used in the song Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And they received so many prank calls, they just got so upset, ended up suing the band. And I would imagine some of these prank calls were absolutely hilarious, although I know the one that I personally made was kind of rather inappropriate. Now, I never made one. I never did make prank calls, and Shannon, shut up, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, switching over from television to toys, because I am known as a bit of a toy guy. So I want to tell you that the Rubik's Cube was originally called the Hungarian Magic Cube, and Erno Kubik, its own creator, took over a month to solve the puzzle for the first time. I'd also like to mention that the final run of the WWF Wrestling Superstars line, these rubber figures right here, also known as the Black Series, was only released in Canada. And that's why these figures are so darn expensive. I've been trying to finish the set for a couple of years now. Let's see, in 1984, over 20,000 counterfeit Cabbage Patch Kids were seized by customs officers, which is amazing when you figure that nowadays you can pick them up for about $1 or $2 at any thrift store. And to close things out, you might find it interesting to know the Care Bears were not originally a cartoon or a show at all, but they were characters on greeting cards, which I can actually see. They're kind of cute. They're kind of perfect for that. Well, this is the first episode of Jack's Interesting Facts. If you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, message me. Put a comment underneath. I don't know. They always say subscribe, do these different things. I don't know. I'm not a big YouTube guy. I'm just out here having some fun and I don't know, just shooting off some random facts. Hope you enjoyed the first episode of Jack's Interesting Facts. I'll be filming every Saturday and sending a video out. Hope you enjoy it. See you later.